Hey, good morning and welcome back to Taylor Time Live. I'm your host, Seth Gladden, and today we're going to be talking about healthcare. If this is your first time joining us, I would encourage you to go back and check out some of our other episodes. We've had some great ones both last year and this year. For those of you that are joining us again, you'll know that we're in the middle of a series right now called The Insider's View Commercial Builder Multifamily. So we're focusing on different markets in those. Like I said, today is healthcare. We've already covered residential and multifamily previously. So again, go back and check those out. Valuable information in them. And then as we move throughout the year, we'll continue this series talking about different markets. So you definitely don't want to miss those. Before we get started though, let me introduce our guests. We've got some great guests on today. With me in studio is Gary Scheidker, our Director of Tech Services. And an almost full-time Taylor Time Live guest. So, Gary, thanks for being here.
Great to be here. Thank you, Seth.
Absolutely. Also joining me remotely, we've got another guest who frequents our screens here, and that's Robert Barton with CFI. Robert, great to have you here. Oh, Robert, just a moment. We're having some technical issues. Give us just a moment to fix those. And
how about now?
Try it now. We got you now.
How you doing, Seth? Gary, great to be with you guys. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Great to be with you. Thanks for being here again, and sorry about that. And then joining us remotely today, we have Jeff and Blake Grimsley with Signature Flooring out of Southern California. Jeff and Blake, great to have you guys here.
Thank you for having us. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Seth. Great to be on with you.
Yeah, great to see you guys as well. And before we actually jump into healthcare, I just want to ask you guys, just if you could briefly tell us a little bit about who you guys are, who your company is. That way those that are watching know who you guys are and how to find you if they have any questions after the event as well. So that'd be great. So Jeff, do you mind kind of starting off and tell us a little bit about your company?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Jeff Grimsley, been in the business now 40 years. Seems like about a week, but it's been an interesting career and had a lot of fun. Got a lot of nice people. Started Signature Flooring now 16 years ago and worked in every aspect of commercial flooring, but with the construction industry the way it is, it seems that we do a lot of healthcare and
Paul, do you hear that wrong?
Renovations and new.
Do not hear.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that interruption. And then Blake, you want to?
I was off. Sorry.
You want to add in?
Yeah. So this is I'm my 11th year with the company here, and primarily I deal with a lot of new construction and today's topic being healthcare. We do a lot of work in hospitals. So I kind of oversee some of the larger projects and just kind of manage that day-to-day business with our different salesmen here in the office.
Gotcha. So would you guys say, what are you seeing more of lately? Is it more new construction hospitals or more renovations? What's kind of the balance that you guys strike?
So I wouldn't say maybe 50-50. It's hard to kind of peg a number to that aspect, but there is a lot of new construction that's going on, whether it's the pent-up demand from jobs that may have been on hold, or a lot of different renovations that are going on now that obviously we're in this COVID era, and just looking at what we have for the healthcare landscape, all the different entities that we're seeing and challenges that go into that.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the healthcare landscape, I'm glad you said that, because that's actually our first topic that we're going to jump into, and I was going to kick that right back to you. So, Blake, do you mind kind of just painting a picture for us of what the healthcare landscape does look like currently, and walk us through some of the major changes you've seen over the last maybe 10 to 12 months, and how that's affected things?
Sure. I mean, obviously, with every segment of our world has been affected by COVID, and whereas in previous years, past installs, it's a little bit more cut and dry. Now, there's a lot of issues that we're having to grapple with setting up an installation. Whether it be a QR code before an installer comes on site to verify that they don't have any symptoms. To that end, they obviously, full face masks are being required of our installation teams. A lot of times they have to be in a full clean room gown type setting. There's a lot of different kind of curveballs that are kind of being thrown our way that, healthcare was already a challenging sector as it is, and now it's just been ramped up even more.
Yeah, that's crazy. So everything from scanning codes to gowning up, I wouldn't have expected some of that. So, QR codes were almost a thing of the past, it seems like, and then through COVID, every restaurant's had them and all these things, and so you're seeing those come back a lot. We're actually going to be putting those on our labels moving forward as well, but they are useful. Do you guys mind just kind of continue to walk us through what those changes have meant and how that's affected, you think, overall the landscape, and then we'll get Gary and Robert to jump in here as well with you guys.
Yeah, with new construction, there's not a lot of the variances are that you have to meet a time schedule, and that crunch. More of my work is on the renovation side, and so that has its peculiarities as well. But similar, the goal is we've got to get it turned over, because in an operating hospital, you have a situation where downtime is they're losing money, and so
Right.
It's not opening the facility, it's opening the room and those kind of things. So similar challenges, but just a little difference there.
Yeah, I think as Jeff said, from the standpoint, healthcare is healthcare, but when you start talking new construction versus renovation, those are like two different worlds, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, now on the reno part, are you having a full gown up nowadays with COVID?
Yeah, with that, well, it's always been a gown up, but now you throw in the COVID aspect, which everybody is really tired of hearing of, COVID this and COVID that, but it's almost becoming second nature to walk into a building and have your mask on and not even think about it, where it used to be kind of funny, everybody walking around with this. Now it's second nature, but gowning up has always been a big part of what we do, not only for the protection of our guys, but, contamination of a space. And so those things with new construction, you don't have, you're on the site and you may have to meet the protocol for COVID, but that's probably it, and masking. But, wearing a full gown gets pretty hot, with the Tyvek suits on, the things that they have to wear.
A lot of other factors are installing on after hours, whereas before, if we could be in there during the day, now clients are wishing to have us in, well past midnight, and then getting out of there by 6-7 a.m. at the latest. So we have a finite time to get different demolition, prep, installation done to turn it back over for the client that following day, and that's always been an aspect, but now it's much more scrutinized.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing was,
Seth, just to add what Blake just said. He said, get in during the night, do the demo, do and do that in a way that nobody hears you. I mean, if it's occupied, if it's renovation, that means you've got patients sleeping in the other room. So you've got to, maybe not quite like that, but yeah, you start talking the particulars of that. Now, let me ask you this. Blake, on the new construction side, I've got buddies that, on large projects where they've had to cut back on, with the social distancing issues, they've had to cut back on how many men they could have present on a job site. Have they come to you and had your guys work in shifts yet?
Oh, most definitely. We're getting to the point where they're having us start earlier in the morning to kind of not trade stack all the other the partners. So say starting at 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then coming in just starting totally after hours on a new construction job to limit some of that space that if you're riding up in a temporary elevator cab, not having all those guys huddled up in the same area, limiting the cab to 3 to 4 guys plus the operator, bringing up tools and that segment. So there's
So
a
they
lot.
can't pack you in the elevator like sardines anymore.
Yeah, that's it's funny that my dad and I were on a job site about 15 months ago, and it was a temporary elevator cab outside the building, and it was exactly like that, where you had 12 bodies all right against each other, and then flash forward to now this new era, and obviously that's not happening.
Yeah.
It's
I find
a
that
lot more
even in the
difficult
hotels
to-
and elevators I'm staying in.
Yep, same thing with stickers on the floors and. Yep.
Jeff,
Yeah.
when you're doing remodels, do they close off sections for you or a wing, or are you just mostly doing single rooms, single operatories, things like that?
Well, a little of both. We will many times when we're working in an operatory area, they'll section off, say maybe an OR and part of the hallway to give you that. But we have to do infection control, make sure that's all done. So you have to factor all of that into your scope of work. It isn't just show up and walk in the door and start removing the floor. You have to make sure that the infection control's up and it's been inspected and approved before you start. You got to make sure your guys are gowned up and pass the protocols, all those things. So you have 4 men on the job or 3 men on the job. You've lost 4 hours of production time, right? And you haven't done a thing.
Yeah.
And so, and then you're still, you still have to get that room turned over by 6 or 7 because they have to, in some cases, terminally clean the room, which takes another couple hours. So it's definitely a time crunch situation. And then, as you said, Robert, and be a church mouse. They don't want you to know you're making any noise. So that's very, very critical.
And when you leave the next morning, they don't want any sign that you've ever been there.
Right.
No, we've got to remove. We have to bring things in covered. We have to take them out covered to make sure that there's no dust, no dirt. With all the new dust controls and OSHA laws in regards to silica exposure,
Right.
We have to dust free is a key component to what we do, and a lot of the manufacturers have met that demand, which really helps our guys.
It's absolutely
You
critical.
made a comment. I don't mean to keep bumping in on you guys. So I know Seth likes to say something once in a while too.
Hey, that's
but,
okay.
You talk about the infectious control aspect of it all, and especially when you're going in and doing renovation stuff. With all the new infection control, things that are in place with COVID and all that. What about even the demolition that you're taking up? Are they making you specially bag that? How you contain that? I mean,
yes, that's a key component with the control. We use sometimes plastic boards that are it's corrugated plastic, and to put that up with metal studs to create a false wall. You can't make a lot of noise, so it all has to be prefab, brought in, put up, and then covering the demo is critical, because you can't introduce the odors and the contaminants into the space, because you're going to have to walk through an area that is sensitive, and that's being prepared for that is just vital, because we're talking about people's lives and the impact that it has on just getting their job done. That's the last thing you want to do, is impact them.
Yeah. So Jeff, I'm going to ask you a question, but before I do, I want to remind anyone viewing, you can text your questions at any point, and we'll field those to the number right here on the screen, and we'll leave that up for just a moment. So go ahead and write that number down, grab it, get ready to text your questions in throughout the rest of this. We will put this back up a couple more times. But speaking of questions, Jeff, you're talking about how you've seen this timeline shift and really gone from, not near as much prep work, not having to gown up and mask up and have these constricted hours and all this. What have you seen that do to the timeline, to bidding a job, to how is that affecting the actual work on the ground, I guess.
Well, you take that into consideration, and the main thing is your client. They understand what you're up against, and the relationship you have. You have to tell them, I have to do these certain things, and which they come to understand. And you need guys that are very well trained in what they do. It isn't like learn on the job. They have to have brought that knowledge there, because this is an environment where there's really no room for error. And so putting that bid together, the low number isn't the thing that they're really looking for. They're looking for getting that room done and completed, and so they could use it.
Right. So from a timeline perspective, if you had a job previous that would take you, say, a week, is that a 2-week job now, or a month-long job?
No, I don't know. It's not going to double it. It's just that you might bite off a smaller section than you used to, because of all what we just discussed. All the things are getting turned back over. So,
gotcha. So it's that work smarter. You gotta just be sure you're doing the right things at the right time.
Right, and have the guys trained up front so they know what to do and well versed, and if something goes wrong, what to do.
Right,
that's critical. Safety,
and we talk.
Safety is the underlying thing here. Safety is just critical.
For sure. Yeah, and we talk about it all the time with labor, and you've mentioned that there's no room for error. You've really got to have guys that know what they're doing. I know Robert. That's what he does literally for a living is train those people. But that's, with the installation crisis, we talked about that a few months ago as well. But have you guys seen that impact at all? Is it hard to get really good installers that know what they're doing and are not making those mistakes?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, a lot of our in-house guys have been extremely valuable based upon their experience of working in both a new construction and a renovation healthcare environment, of kind of knowing what's expected, and just kind of been there, done that. Time has always been a factor in healthcare now and in years past. Operating rooms being shut down for a client is very expensive and very valuable. So, having trained installation and crews that can understand and meet those deadlines is critical.
Yeah, we get some of the projects we do secure is because of the crews that we have, and they'll say, hey, I want these gentlemen or ladies on the project and running it, because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, a couple of weeks ago I toured the training facility for the union in Atlanta, and it surprised me. They were actually training the installers how to do those protocols for cleanliness and things like that to avoid dust. Is that something you're seeing on the West Coast? Because I know you guys are a union shop, and that's probably got to be a benefit.
Yeah, that's it's just huge. I mean, not having to worry about it as much as in the old days, where you take a bag and dump it in the mixer and it would you create a cloud. Those are over, but we have the vacuum attachments that go on the barrel to when they pour it in, it evacuates that dust. All of those things are critical in saving time and becoming more efficient, which all the manufacturers that we work with have a product that will fill that need.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jeff and Blake,
including those adhesive manufacturers.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's dust-free self-levelers. There's adhesives with literally next to no VOCs, so the odor is contained. So there's a lot of different things that are at our disposal nowadays.
Well, and even the issues I think you run into, I mean, especially when you're going in and doing a demo, you don't know what you're going to run into on a floor, not just from a prep standpoint, but even, moisture, alkalinity, things, depending on the products you're going in with. I mean, and I'm not that I would ever give a plug for Taylor or anything like that, but you take products like Resolute and so forth that you can go in, because again, it's all about time and how again, that room, I'm sure, as Jeff will probably say, it's, when that thing is empty, they're losing money. They want you in, they want it up, they want to be able to put somebody in it the next day. So
Yeah,
time is very sensitive typically on these projects.
very true. And the kind of the wrench that makes up the works is when we get into moisture related issues. And you want to address those up front to make sure that you don't create a problem of having to shut a room down twice because you didn't test the floor properly and you didn't follow the rules basically of installation. And if you don't do that, they're not real happy when you tell them, oh, I forgot to seal the floor and now we have to shut it down twice. Even though it may be on our dime to do that, it's not a good conversation to have. So that's one we address up front quickly.
Right. Yeah, and Jeff and Blake, you guys have done a really good job, and thank you, of laying out kind of the landscape of what you guys are seeing, a lot of the changes that have happened, things like that. I do want to put that phone number up one more time for people to text in. But you just mentioned the installation and started talking about moisture, which we all know is a huge issue, not just with healthcare, but in general. But a lot of what you've seen in the landscape is affected as well and impacts the installation challenges. So can we talk about that a little bit? Let's talk about what are some of the trends that we see from a flooring perspective even. Are they using the same flooring materials in hospitals now that they were 12, 18, 24 months ago? And how is that impacted? What are you guys seeing on the install side of that as well? And Jeff, do you mind kind of kicking that one off for us?
Sure. PVC free is a big push out here in California, and a lot of the manufacturers have tried to address it. And sometimes there's a disconnect between the adhesive that's used and the product, and we have to come back and fix it. But a few of the manufacturers have dialed it in and have been real successful with it. PVC, as you know, with all the carpet manufacturers, have pretty much gotten it out of their carpet tile in the backing and gone to alternatives. And then we've had some manufacturers with sheet goods in the PVC free, and LVT, which is such a huge component of the market today. That's kind of the real biggie that I've seen recently in product. The adhesives is also a key component here. Is you need fast drying ones. A lot of pressure sensitive products that have come out that speed up the process, so you don't have to return the next day to heat weld, which shuts down a room even longer than they think it's done, and you say you can't do it, you can't finish it. But the PV or the pressure sensitive glues have really helped our process along as well.
Right. So let me back up just a little bit. I heard you say LVT. Now when I think healthcare, and I'm not an installer, and I don't do this day in day out, but when I think of a hospital, I've broken a few bones in my life doing stupid things. So, I've been in a few of those rooms, and I always think of that, that sheet flooring, right? That coves up the walls. Mm-hmm. You said LVT. Can you explain a little bit where you're seeing that going? Because that sounds like maybe a shift.
Well, LVT has, it's taken over our industry gangbusters. It's really put a crimp in the carpet world. I know that, but I've been doing this long enough that I've seen carpet in patient rooms and corridors. I've removed it, I've put it back in, and it seems to be that the product of choice is LVT. It's the look that everyone wants. It goes in quick, has like I said, great aesthetics. You can have stone looks or wood looks and things, which today in the healthcare industry, the design community has come up with some great design layouts that make the experience when somebody's in the hospital a lot more enjoyable than the sterile blue colored walls with beige flooring that it just creates a better environment. And my hat's off to the design community. Some of the things that they do are just amazing, and translating their vision onto the floor has always been fun when you see the finished product. So LVT helps that along quite a bit.
So they're pulling most of the sheet vinyl out of the patient rooms, going in with LVT.
Yes,
just doing a top set base on top of it.
Yeah, we do the old standard top set base that we all know has kind of changed. We see different profiles, probably 4.5-inch base. It's still a vinyl or rubber compound that goes in, a lot more attractive and a lot more durable. So in the middle of the night when a chair gets banged up in it, isn't that they have a bad looking facility or room, because the way things are, for a while here we had 110% occupancy. They were putting people everywhere,
right,
and they want to make sure that environment is conducive for wellness at the end of the day.
But of course, all the clean rooms, surgical rooms are all still sheet vinyl, welded, coved.
Yeah, we're still seeing full sheet vinyl, rubber sheet in all operating rooms and intensive care rooms. So there's no real deviation from that standpoint of things being heat welded, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Much critical for cleanliness. It's just the way it has to be.
Yes. Also, we're seeing where in the back of house, we're seeing people getting away from the VCT aspect of it and going to a more maintenance-friendly product, and LVT gives you that. And then in some of the office areas. So the aspect of just working in a patient room and OR is not, well, I should say the office space is more important in some respects, because they got to get this thing done and managed and people back to work the next day. So we're doing a lot of LVT in those areas, just because it's easier for the staff to maintain, and it's cleaner in the long run.
Sure, that makes sense.
Right. So we just had a question come in. So I'm gonna throw this your way, Jeff and Blake, and see what you guys have to say on this. So it's a two-part question. Part one I'll send to you guys. What percentage of new construction jobs, so I guess probably Blake, are you implementing traditional 2-component epoxy moisture mitigation systems with? So I guess how often are you seeing that?
On almost all of new construction, our clients are having us budget in for 2-part epoxy moisture mitigation. And what we find is a lot of the times the clients have kind of learned the lessons and they're okay with allocating funds in the budget to that. Our challenge sometimes is educating the GCs about not only the cost, but the time aspect to do this labor intensive work. So obviously shot blast grinding to a CSP profile of 3, putting on the epoxy, priming it and top coating it with an 1/8-inch cement. So educating the GC and then executing that in the field is critical. I find it, to go back to the original question, just almost on all my new construction stuff, there's some aspect of moisture mitigation necessary. They don't have HVAC fully functional, so the concrete is not drying out. It's saturated full of water, and it has a densified cap of that's blocking any emissions from being released.
Right. Yeah, moisture is definitely a huge issue, as we've mentioned. And if this is your first
we're
time
even
doing,
seeing it. Yeah, we're even seeing it. 5-6 floors, above grade. It isn't just the first floor and the basement. It's 16 floors up in some respects. They don't want to have any issues at all.
Yeah, concrete is, it's different everywhere around the country, and you have different issues and challenges, so you never can know exactly what you're going to get. It's kind of like that box of chocolates, right?
Well, that's why you have to know the building codes in the area that you're working in.
Yep.
I've been on job sites on old buildings and found 8 pounds on an 8th floor. which you wouldn't think you would have a moisture issue.
Right.
And I've seen moisture issues in the desert. So you can have moisture issues no matter where you go. It's just a fact of life.
So what I was going to say is if you haven't seen our one on moisture, go back and check that one out. Blake, I'll get right back to you on that, but this was a two-part question. I'm not sure who sent it in, so I do want to honor the question. It says, has Taylor Adhesives reduced the percentage of traditional epoxy mitigation? So as you know, this is not a show where we promote Taylor or promote products. So we appreciate the question, and we would love to think that the answer is yes. But I did want to get that out there. Blake, please continue with your moisture.
Yeah, no, it's kind of in that same vein. There are a lot of, various manufacturers and different other options that are coming out that offer high moisture solutions that not necessarily require a full two-part epoxy and shot blasting. But I would say that is a pretty bulletproof method of mitigating any moisture. But if the budget shouldn't allow for that, I know there's a lot of manufacturers and brands that are coming out with single component solutions.
Right. So we've talked about
a lot
COVID
of it
already.
Has to do with getting those products, as far as the single products, getting rented into the specs with the architects and the manufacturers. Because a lot of times, as Blake said, that's actually in the specs on what they're going to be doing on the project. So sometimes it's, and they seem to be slow at coming around, meaning the architects and design groups, as far as learning, because no one really educates them on those types of products and their benefits. Sometimes it's, our job, your job, Jeff's job to really go in and do that, especially Jeff on the remodel side, because he's got a product that he could go in and just basically, it's guaranteed, no testing, and just utilize that product and take care of an issue he was having that saves them time. Then there you go.
Mm-hmm. One of the issues with that is, unfortunately, everybody thinks that if the manufacturer brings out a high RH resistant adhesive, they think that they can use it in every application. And that is where education is a big component. And unfortunately, they all feel that the cheapest one will do the best. Well, I used it on this other job and it'll take care of every situation.
We would tell them otherwise.
And I know we've heard it. And so you really have to educate people that just because it says it'll go to 99, should we use this?
Right.
And we've had that conversation a few times.
Yeah, just because it withstands
You've never heard that,
doesn't mean it blocks it. So
Yeah, we educate people on that every day, really, because we do produce high moisture tolerant adhesives, just like other adhesive manufacturers. But unless they provide moisture protection, if you install a floor covering, say a linoleum or rubber or something that maybe has an 85% RH limit on it, it's not going to provide that moisture protection, and the flooring could do something strange. It could curl or expand or contract or do something that is going to create that product or cause that product to have a failure, basically. So we're going to try to provide solutions.
Another item that bears mentioning is, two-part epoxy historically, as well as a lot of high moisture adhesives, can have a very strong odor. And in a healthcare environment, we wouldn't want to present a product that could cause a patient in the next room any problems with their whatever they're dealing with it in the hospital setting.
Right.
So we always are got to be sensitive to the fact that low VOCs, especially here in California, and we got to present what we're using to the client and make sure it's not going to pose any problems.
Yeah. Robert and I know all about that. We tested with a product a few months ago that we couldn't even stay in the warehouse with it. It was bad. And I'm desensitized to smell after 50 years in this business.
I will say that wasn't a Taylor product.
It was not a Taylor product, but we couldn't.
I won't say who.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Just a quick note on product. I mean, what happens is, when I was out installing every day, there were some great products that, had I have known about them, I would have used them. But I get comfortable with what I use. I've got a few selections that's just my go-to. And suddenly what happens is, and I'm sure, Blake and Jeff, the last thing they got time for is running around and searching out and, seeing demos of all these new products. So what happens is you get a few go-tos, and unless somebody comes in and educates you on some of this newer stuff and what, great things it can do for you to help you, you kind of just end up with those old products until somebody comes along and says, hey, have you tried this? Try it, use this, or so forth and so on. But it's getting those new ones out there. It takes time.
One of the things that we're fortunate, we're members of the Fuse Alliance, and we meet a lot of great manufacturers and a lot of great contractors across the country that we come together and share yearly and then monthly ideas or solutions to problems and whatnot. And it's been a great assistance to us over the years.
Yeah, that's good to have that.
And that's one thing, we always teach, even with CFI, is to always, keep an open mind, do your research, continue your education. Don't just kind of get that path. And that's great. And Fuse is a great group to work with. They do a lot of that for their members. Yeah, great. I got a quick question for you, though, and maybe it kind of takes us back or forward, but, with all this, with all the COVID and then, the vaccines getting out, and you may not know the answer to this. Do you anticipate that QR code that you say sometimes you're having to show to go into a job site, which has to do with how you feel and your temperature and so forth? Do you see that suddenly reaching a point that they're going to say, well, in order to be on our job site, you have to have had your vaccination?
Well, we see it from even in past years, clients have mandated that our installers have a flu shot and a TB test shot. And, obviously the way the world is, the government can't say you have to have a vaccine shot, but
right.
A lot of these private healthcare providers, very well may do so and show proof of vaccination or, different on-site testing. They're already obviously doing the temperature checks and masking, but I wouldn't be surprised if, down the line, if they are asking for our in-house installation team to provide proof of vaccine to work on site.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Robert, thanks for asking. Thanks for asking that, because that actually brings us right to kind of our next section, which is planning for the future, right? And that fits directly in there of we've talked about the landscape and what you guys have seen changing, both from the COVID perspective and the flooring types perspective, installation, moisture, all these things. But where do you guys see the healthcare industry going? So, to our viewers out there, what do they need to watch out for? And fortunately, and I love that we have you guys on the line, because you are in Southern California, right? So you guys are in the epicenter of the first things that are going to hit, from regulations to, to different methods or products. You guys are the first ones to experience that impact and see how that's going to work, and then it kind of comes across the country from there. So it's really great, because a lot of people viewing can hear what you guys are experiencing, and that for them is already a snapshot of the future. But so hopefully they've already learned things. But that being said, what do you guys see coming down? So as far as crews and COVID and these sort of things, walk us through that.
Well, with our firm, all of our guys who work for us are their direct employees, so we have pretty control over who's going on a job. They're prepared to what they're going into up front, so it isn't like we don't know them. I try to go out to almost every job and see who's there. If they have a question, it's answered, those kind of things. And in some respects, our COVID world has made us better, because we have to think about the small little things, in that, guys making sure they wash their hands, make sure they do all these things. You're just protecting yourself better in the long run. And training and safety for the guys, it goes hand to hand. You're trained up front. There's CPR. We have this OSHA 30 or OSHA 10 cards that the guys carry, that they've gone through the different protocols associated with that, and it produces a better product at the end of the day. Our guys are quite an asset to us, and like I said earlier, they get us work.
Right. So do you see these? We talked about how you guys have to gown up and you have to have masks and even just the storage, and I don't know if we talked about that already, but just the storage of products and the moving of product and tools in and out of the job site. What of that do you guys see staying, and how do you see that impacting, moving forward? Or maybe even what, like you said, what do you hope will stay?
Well, that's one challenge that you kind of hit on about acclimating your material, whether it be new construction or renovation. But if you're on a renovation, a lot of manufacturers are asking and mandating that it needs to be acclimated for 48 to 72 hours. So kind of planning some of that's always kind of been part of kind of what we do, but just planning for the future. And with COVID's presented a lot of manufacturer delays and issues with shipping and getting containers. And so just looking ahead to the future and saying, hey, if we have this build out going on, always staying on top of when materials coming in and notifying the client and that sort of thing.
Right. So do you foresee a lot of these regulations that they have currently with all of the safety protocols? Do you guys see that staying for the next foreseeable future, like 6-12 months?
I think it's going to be with us for a long time. It's not going to go away. This virus that has come about, and now the variants that are coming down, they're just not going to take any shortcuts. It's
right.
From the time we walk in, and interesting. Blake was talking about the climatizing not only the space but the material and renovation. That's sometimes can be very difficult. In California, we don't have the extreme weather conditions that they do have in the Midwest and the East Coast, but we do have it. In today's reference, yesterday was 90 degrees here. It's going to be 85, but at the end of the week it's going to be 60. So there's a 25-30 degree temperature change, and you're going to put in LVT that has to be climatized for so long. Your customer has to give you a space to be able to put that material in to get it ready to go. So
right.
Communication on what we do is vital.
Well, that's where experience really comes into play. When we get into contractors that maybe aren't experienced with healthcare and they try to do it, and they usually fail. So having a company like you guys where you go out, you know what you're going to get into up ahead of time. You've got mechanics that are qualified to do the work, and they're capable of doing pretty much anything you put them in front of. And that's really makes a world of difference. I've seen it back during the last downturn in 2007, where contractors that really were not experienced in commercial decided they're going to go into commercial because multifamily or new construction was down, and they failed miserably. It was actually pretty ugly.
So
on the healthcare side, of course, I'm sorry, Seth.
No, go ahead, Robert.
We've talked, patients' rooms, we've talked clean rooms. You still got a lot of office and things that are part of the health, facilities and so forth. Are you seeing any carpet in those at all anymore? Or most of them LVT and.
We still do a lot of carpet. It's carpet tile. The days of the rolls are changing, and that presents a problem in our warehouse where we've all been racked up for to accommodate the 12-foot rolls or the 6-foot goods, and now everything's palletized and comes in. So just managing that from a warehouse side is interesting. Mm-hmm. But carpet tile is a big component. We do a lot of raising the furniture, so-called lift or occupied office renovation. We've done that. And carpet tile, it's very dominant. All the manufacturers are basically in it. They have beautiful products to work with, and so we work in conjunction with them in making sure that we will follow the adhesive protocols that they want, and so on, just to get in and get out. But the last thing you want to be working on is the CEO or the CFO's office and have a problem. And moving furniture right. And those kind of things. So there's a lot of attention to detail right there.
Yeah. So I know. One thing you've seen through COVID is a lot more. Even like restrooms and things being upgraded with touch-free paper towel dispensers and hand dryers and even the doors with the little kick plates on the bottom or automatic opening. What do you guys see? Have you seen any impacts as far as that in the healthcare world, and does that bring about any other challenges?
Definitely. We just wrapped a new hospital where at every patient door it had a touch-free door, and that created a number of challenges respective to the floor covering. First off, you have a track that's running above the sheet vinyl self-cove that you have to account for. This was an OSHPOD hospital, so your gap underneath that sliding, rolling, touch-free door can only exceed 1/8 of an inch. So your floor prep is critical and crucial to aligning that, and that I think is going to be something we're seeing more and more with just the hygienic need and nature for different ICU areas. But yeah, that was kind of a learning curve for working with that door sub and our crews, making sure that the elevation height was exactly where it needed to be. Because remember, when we're putting our prep and vinyl down, these doors aren't there. So you kind of have to account for it when it's not there, because then in 6 months when everything's perfectly aligned, like I said, that gap can't exceed that. So it's been a big challenge.
So that's where Gary needs his 8-foot level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's
Oh,
one
yeah,
of
Now
those.
you won't have to come back and demo the floor in a month when he needs to put his door back in.
Yeah, it's one of those things where. No, sorry, Blake. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh no, it's the 8-foot, it just a 10-foot straight edge that we're working with all along, a long corridor, making sure you would have maybe 12 different patient rooms all in a line and getting that perfectly flat and level.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes lasers at that point, almost.
Well,
Yeah, it's
we
an
didn't even
inside-
touch on all the ADA
It's an inside joke.
requirements.
Gary almost hit me with his 8-foot level
That's why he
on
teases me.
one show. So I just
I was
had
aiming
to
and I
bring
missed.
it up.
He ducked.
No, it is definitely interesting though to think about, like, just all the different things that you wouldn't even consider in a normal job. Something as simple as automatic doors, right? So that when I heard you say that's just I would have never thought of that, and that's something definitely. If you are in healthcare and haven't seen even small things like that yet, you probably will. And as Blake pointed out, that's a bit of a learning curve. So you can prepare for that. What have you guys seen as far as like even like so I know patient confidentiality is huge, right? But through COVID, everything probably has the spotlight's been shined on a lot of areas. Has that changed at all? Do you guys see any differences there in the way that things are handled or protocols?
Well, with the HIPAA laws, we can't touch patient records, we can't do anything. But now they've digitized a lot of that information. So the old rooms where they would keep that have changed quite a bit, which has helped our guys quite a bit in getting a job done. But we've had situations where we've gone into a room and there may be a doctor's office there's a pile of files in there, and we just have made it a policy. We do not do that room. We just leave it alone, come back the next day, and they'll say, why wasn't it done? And we'll look at the room. And so you need participation from your client in regards to those kind of things. But the last thing I want to do is mix up some poor guy's file,
Yeah.
So in kind of piggybacking on what my dad was talking about, being digital and all the electronics in a room, we have one provider that it's absolutely critical we do not unplug any Ethernet cords or power cables. And so say we're doing floor prep or spreading adhesive, that could be a challenging aspect to condense and organize all those cables and cords and not have it be unplugged and have it vertical.
Yeah, you got to hope that Cat
Or
5.
glued together.
Yeah, got to hope that Cat 5, the little clip on it isn't broken off, where it just pops out of the wall. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I guess you mentioned earlier, Jeff, regarding labor. You said you guys mostly, or maybe it's 100%, have employees like in-house labor. I know we've talked about it previously in different episodes. Robert, you've talked about how you're seeing more and more like AIA specifications actually dictating CFI, for example, that an installer be CFI certified. Is that something that you guys see being written more into specs? Have you come across that where they're actually saying, hey, we don't want subcontractors of hiring cousin Eddie, to come install the floor, or where do you guys see that and fall into that?
We all of our guys go through a 4-year training process and then work into the field and becoming journeymen. So they deal with these organizations and certifications from manufacturers and things. Some of the manufacturers have actually moved away from saying you're a certified manufacturer installer from a liability standpoint. Mm-hmm. But the thing that it comes back is the overall certification that, say, CFI would have is a broader scope, and that just adds a lot of credibility to what our guys do. And training from an early onset is critical for the guys, and not only in the classroom but on the job. And we get some good apprentices, and we bring them along. We like to, the real good ones, we'd like to have them go from apprentice to journeyman and stay with us that whole process. And it's quite a valuable tool. But having gentlemen like Robert come out and train and bring insight, it's irreplaceable for what we do.
It's what the industry needs.
I mean, we want to treat our guys as professionals in the industry, and it's a good profession. They can earn a good living and have a nice life.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll tag on that a little bit. And it was actually going to be kind of my closing comment, where we always kind of give somebody some takeaways. But, just with what you do in healthcare kind of raises the bar as far as I'm concerned, typically with the products they're putting in, the sensitivity they're putting in, kind of even as Blake has said, what they've got to work around. Even on new construction, it certainly raises the bar there. So you definitely want guys that are trained properly, educated properly, know the products they're going to be installing and install them properly. But when you get into Jeff's world with renovation work, that's even where, again, because I'm not, I won't say anything partial about, union, non-union, employees, subcontractors. But when you get into a situation, because there again, all of them, I will say, need to go through formal training programs. That's part of the problem with our industry is none of them, too many of them have never been through a formal training program. But when you get into what Jeff does, you need those guys that are geared, they've done it, they know what, and not just the products. Then it becomes an issue as we've said throughout this, the sensitivity of what the environment you're going into, being aware of it, even to the point of like Jeff, I'm sure he's got certain crews he uses almost every time in different facilities because they know the facility, they know the contact person. I mean, all of those things make a job go so much smoother. I just can't even begin to tell you. So yeah, having the control, having those of being employees, properly trained employees, been through programs, huge benefit in work like this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Almost critical.
The other thing we didn't touch on is our backroom guys. They have to be cognizant of what needs to be on the job and be there on time, delivered. And we've had a few hiccups along the way, but they strive to be there on time, get the material staged so the guys can get the job done. And our superintendent monitoring the job, make sure things are going on, and their help is vital. So it's just the kind of they're really behind the scenes to get the work done. And
right.
There's just there's just a lot to move, a lot of parts and pieces that have to come together that sometimes people don't realize that go.
Yeah.
Yep. So we've got just a couple of minutes left here, and I really want to head towards wrapping this up. Robert, you got a head start on us, so thank you.
I did. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. We're going to move
we were there, so.
into our section we call the bottom line, which is where we really try to bring home just something that you can implement into your ongoing practices or your toolbox, your train of thought, to really get you to that next level in healthcare for this episode. So, Robert, we got yours already, but just in 30 to 60 seconds, Gary, I'm going to start with you next. So tell us, if you were watching today, what would you want to hear that would make an impact on your business?
Okay, to me, the most important thing is you have to know the products you're going to be installing. If it's something that you've worked with on a regular basis, you know the moisture limitations, the acclimation requirements, things like that. But if it's something you haven't worked with before, make certain that you know all of the protocols that have to go along with the product, the moisture limitations, whether it's relative humidity or calcium chloride from MVER, and also if the product has to be acclimated for an extended period of time, because you don't want any surprises when you get to the job site, and it's going to make that job go in a lot smoother and reduce the chance of failure.
Perfect. Blake, I'm going to come to you next. So we'll get you back here, and so bottom line for you, if you were watching today, what would you want to hear?
Bottom line is what we were talking about just with this whole segment of being healthcare is a growing, increasingly growing segment in the construction industry, whether it be on the new side or the renovation. If your firm is not involved and you're just strictly doing workplace or education, I would strongly suggest is getting into it and starting to learn the various aspects of both on the renovation side or on the larger and on newer side is increasingly growing with our world in the various COVID aspects. There are obviously the challenges that we've detailed today here, but it is always an ever expanding marketplace.
Okay, and Jeff, bring us home.
Well, it's interesting. I got into this business in 1981. The old saying was a fuzzy side up, and that's kind of the first thing you learn. And all the other products that come have gone. It's been quite interesting. But what I guess I would recommend to somebody is it's kind of the common sense. Treat your customer as they are the single most person or entity that you have every day. Anytime you're there, your attention is always with them, and become part of their team. I've worked in a lot of hospitals for lots and lots of years, and been through lots of facility managers that come into the facilities and work with them diligently, and so it's almost a reintroduction process. So always put your best foot forward, like I'm sure everyone does. But every day is a new challenge with new products and things, and just be educated. Learn from the vendors and join organizations like Fuse. This is your career, and be professional in what you do. And just, I guess, at the bottom line is be honest with somebody. If you make a mistake, admit it. Don't try to hide it. Don't make excuses. Own up, and people accept that. They just don't want to hear an excuse.
Yep. Well, very good. So there you have it. There's the bottom line. Robert, great having you. Thank you so much for joining us. Jeff and Blake,
always a pleasure.
Thank you guys as well. It's been a wealth of information. I know I've learned a lot of things myself today as well. So thank you guys for being here. Gary, as always, thanks for being here in studio. And
thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure being asked to do this and being a participant. It was a good experience.
Yeah, thank you for passing on the knowledge, Jeff and Blake. You guys are amazing. You do a phenomenal job, and the experience definitely shows.
Yep.
Thank you.
And hey, we just want to remind you, always follow us on social media, join us, join our newsletters. You can sign up for those on our website. Just go to tailoradhesives.com/tailortime. Right there you can subscribe to our newsletter. It's once a month, comes out the first Tuesday of every month. We have Tailor Time Live, which is what you're seeing today. Those are the third Tuesday of every month, so don't miss those. Our next one is on education, so if you do any work in that realm or are interested in getting into it, definitely tune in for that. And if you haven't checked them out yet, we just launched our Taylor Time tips. Those are little micro videos, 30 to 60 second tips that just help you in your day-to-day with installing flooring. I think that's all we've got for today, so really appreciate you guys joining us. And until next time, we're Taylor Adhesives, and we're with you every step.